dear learners, today I will be discussing with you a very important issue, that is right to privacy. So we have to deal all these issues. Right to privacy is really very important. If we go by the national jurisdiction of our nation and international perspective, we have to refer to the Constitution of India. So first I will be talking about our Constitution. Article 21 says, no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. So this is also very important, as it says any person has a right to his life and personal liberty, and nobody, even the law or even the state, will not deprive his personal right to life and liberty except according to the procedure established by law. So it is settled that a procedure will be established by law or by the state, and it has to be pre-decided that okay, these are your limits, you can move, you can exercise your right to life, but under certain restrictions. Next is Article 20 Clause 3, which talks about self-incrimination. Self-incrimination says that okay, if you call me for an evidence, I will definitely say and do something, but any person cannot be compelled to give an evidence against himself. So Article 19 also says freedom of speech and expression, which says every person has a right to say something and to express his feelings by the way of writings, cartoons, ideas, pictures, etc. So if we refer to all three articles, that is Article 20 Clause 3, Article 19 and Article 21A and Article 21, then we see that right to life is there, and a person's right to privacy can be restricted, can be curtailed by state, but under reasonable restrictions only. Next is, if we see a case, Govind versus State of MP 1975, in this case the Supreme Court stated that there can be no doubt that privacy, dignity claims deserve to be examined with care and to be denied only when an important countervailing interest is shown to be superior. So in this case, the Supreme Court has affirmed that right to privacy exists, because if we see the Constitution, it no way mentions about right to privacy in general. But if we see Article 21, then we can say that Article 21 enshrines this right, that is right to privacy. And the Supreme Court has affirmed in this case that it can be examined with care and to be denied only when an important countervailing interest is shown to be superior. That countervailing interest can be the state's interest, the nation's interest, the society's interest, or the government interest. But that has to be decided by the court, decided by the state, and dealt with accordingly. Next, if I refer, then I will be talking about the observations of the Supreme Court in this case. In this case, following principles emerge. First one was right to privacy is a fundamental right implicit in Article 21. As I have already said, that there is right to privacy is there in Article 21, but that has not been expressed in Article 21, because Article 21 says no person shall be deprived of his life, of his right to life and liberty except by the procedure established by law. It no way mentions right to privacy as a right, but as the Supreme Court judges has also affirmed, and so many leading cases are there, in these cases the judges have said yes, right to privacy is a part of right to life under Article 21. Next is, it is not absolute right but subject to reasonable restrictions like any other fundamental right. Okay, you have a right to life, so you have a right to privacy also, but that right to privacy is there for you with certain restrictions. As there are certain boundaries in every right, there are certain safeguards. Similarly, right to privacy also has a certain restriction that is attached with the right to privacy, and that is defined by the state, defined by the government or the parliament, or by the society from time to time, and it can change also. Next is right to privacy can be exercised subject to other rights and values and compelling state and public interest. Okay, you have a right to privacy. Nobody will see your accounts, nobody will tap your phone, and accordingly, but okay, that has certain restrictions also. If it is important for the state to know that okay, this particular person is doing a certain act, so what is the thing which he is doing, the state has to come to a conclusion. So the state or the law enforcing agencies can say okay, for a particular period you have to do all investigations regarding a person. So the police or the investigating authorities will be given the power to investigate, and they can see your personal records also, your personal mails, your personal laptops, your personal emails, and your personal messages also. They can have an access to your phones, they can have your access to whom you meet, and they can do whatever they want if they think that okay, your act, your movement is not in consonance with law, or somewhere or the other you are acting as not in interest in the of the society. So just for ruling out or just to know the truth, the state has the power and it can exercise accordingly. Then the next case is District Registrar and Collector versus Canara Bank, 2005. This case is also very important, and in this case the Supreme Court has held the right to privacy of a person includes right to freedom from unreasonable search and seizure. Okay, there is a right to privacy. Every person has got a right to privacy, and right to privacy includes freedom from unreasonable search and seizure. Nobody can stop you and say okay, I am there, you have to come out and I will just search your things, or I can arrest you. There has to be somebody who has been given power. That can be any state authority or prescribed by the law. If any person has been given the power to search and seizure, then he has to inform you okay, fine, I am coming to you, I will make a search and seizure, and then I will reach on to a conclusion. But it's never that if you are moving in a car and suddenly any person wants to search your documents or to search your car or anything. So this right to privacy is there, but it has certain restrictions attached to it. Next, if I say, then the state can have unrestricted access to inspect and seize or make roving inquiries into all bank records relating to person without any reliable information before it prior to such inspection. This is also very important. Then suppose you have a bank account. So as a law, the bank has to keep it as a secret. It should not be open. Your account statements, your passbook should not be open for the public to see. But if the government wants, if the state wants to know about the details, if you are involved in a certain case or there is a doubt relating to your activities, then the state can check your records. Even the bank records, bank statements can be seen. Suppose you are filing your income tax return, then also the income tax authorities have the power, if they find that okay, something is wrong there and you have to really look into the matter, then how will they support their case? So definitely they have to see your bank statements, your lockers, your personal details to know the truth. So this is not a intrusion in the right to privacy, but this will come under reasonable restriction, but that has to be in a bona fide manner. It is not that okay, a person who is an officer in income tax department is not having a good term with you and finally he comes with his people and say okay, I have a right to search and seizure. it should have, he has a right, but it should be done with the prescribed format under the law, and it should be in the bona fide interest only. Next is, if I refer to P. Rajgopal alias Gopal versus State of Tamil Nadu, in this case also the Supreme Court has held that right to privacy is implicit in right to life and liberty guaranteed to the citizens of this country by Article 21. As I said, that you will not find this right to privacy in the Constitution of India. Nowhere in the Constitution of India right to privacy has been defined as a separate right. You can only find this right impliedly or implicit in Article 21 of the Constitution, and in this case also the Supreme Court has said that Article 21 of the Constitution is there, which talks about right to life and personal liberty, and right to privacy is a part of Article 21 of the Constitution. Next is, a citizen has right to safeguard the privacy of his own, his family, marriage, procreation, motherhood, childbearing and education. Okay, so right to privacy is there. A person has a right to privacy of his own, then he has a right to privacy for his family, for his marriage, for procreation, motherhood, childbearing and education. But a very important aspect has come. Suppose you are suffering from HIV AIDS, then can the doctor tell other people that okay, this is such and such person is suffering from this disease, and likewise you should be working carefully and you should act accordingly? So under certain circumstances the law also says that okay, if a person is suffering from AIDS and he is going to get married to a person B who is not HIV positive, then the person B has a right to know about A's health and ailments, and then if that has been done, then definitely that will, if he wants to still marry, to still go through, then okay, otherwise he can come back. So it's, we are also saying that before marriage this should be, some tests should be done. So that is not really affecting your right to privacy, because it is in the interest of the society at large. If you go for a test, if you disclose certain things, then okay, we can restrict or we can check certain things or certain diseases which are very much incurable. If not incurable, then certainly very difficult to get cured. So right to privacy is there, and relating to your marriage, a person can definitely have some rights, because public life and private life is always different. So even a public person or public personality cannot be said that okay, you have to tell everything on the TV. If you are coming for an interview, then you have to disclose every fact. As have we said, Sach Ka Samna is debatable just because of this, because you are talking about yourself in this, but you are talking about yourself, you are talking to people, you are talking to your family members, you are telling the truth to them only just to earn money. How much truth you can say in front of society, and what will be the impact of that truth in your family life, in your society life, and overall your reputation. So that has to be also seen. So we are saying that okay, Sach Ka Samna is there, but for money you can say anything in front of any person. So where are the ethicals? We are talking about ethics, about privacy. So here again we can refer that okay, related to procreation, motherhood, childbearing, education, there is a right to privacy, and every person has a right to privacy relating to these issues. Next is, no one can publish anything concerning the above matters without his consent, and if he does so, he will be liable for damages. Certainly you have a right to privacy. If somebody wants to publish some certain thing relating to you, then okay, there has to be certain procedure. He can take your acceptance, he can write to you, he can email to you, he can contact you and ask for your consent. Still, if you are willing to give your consent, then he can go for that. Otherwise, suppose if somebody wants to publish a certain thing related to a person called X, and without contacting that person X, he just goes in the media and says a statement or publishes that statement, so that is against law, and then he can be charged under the law and call for an action. So you can publish or you can make a statement relating to a person, but with his consent, and if he gives his approval, then definitely, and there are certain more safeguards. Suppose even if he gives consent that okay, you can publish the statement or you can record the statement and you can make it open, but that statement is affecting public sentiments, is against the society norms, then again this will come under restrictions of right to privacy. Next is, if I refer to Kharak Singh case versus state of UP, then the opinion of the judges were divided. The first one was majority opinion and the second one was minority opinion. The majority opinion said right to privacy is not guaranteed under our constitution, and therefore the attempt to ascertain the movements of an individual, which is merely a manner in which privacy is invaded, is not an infringement of fundamental rights guaranteed by Part 3. So they have said that okay, nowhere we talk about right to privacy in the constitution law. So if the constitution is silent about right to privacy, then we cannot say that this right is a part of Part 3, that is fundamental rights, as we have said that Part 3 deals with fundamental rights. So as expressly in the constitution we don't find right to privacy, so the judges have said that this will not come under Part 3 of the constitution. But the minority view is totally different. The minority view says fundamental rights to privacy is part of right to liberty in Article 21. Then part of right to freedom of speech and expression in Article 19(1)(a), and also of the right of movement in Article 1(d). So it says it is a part of Article 21 as expressed in various judgments. It is a part of Article 19 Clause 1 Clause A, that is freedom of speech and expression. You can express your opinion, you can express your feelings, you can do and act accordingly, and there's a right to movement also. Any person can move freely in India and outside India also, and this right enshrines, or this rights finally is there with every person, and we can say that right to privacy is a part of all these three rights. So it is said that the minority opinion of this case is the new trend, and later on in all the judgments we find that this minority opinion is respected and carried forward by various judges in various judgments. Then if we refer to another case, People's Union for Civil Liberties versus Union of India, the Supreme Court held that tapping into telephonic conversation is unconstitutional unless it has been brought about by a procedure established by law. We have seen a matter in which certain MPs and MLAs were saying that our conversation has been recorded, and this is illegal, because if we are talking to somebody, if we are talking to any person, then the state or the government has no right to record those things, to record our conversations, and to tap our phones. So this was also said, and in many cases the Supreme Court and the lower courts have said okay, this right is there, right to privacy is there under Article 19, under Article 21, and okay, if you have to record a person's statement, if you have to tap his conversation, then an approval has to be taken, and it should be in a bona fide manner and according to the procedure established by law. You just cannot go and say, okay, these two people are talking on phone or having a conversation, and I have a person, because I have a known to in telephone department, so I can tell him to record their conversation, and then I can use their conversation for future purposes. So this is illegal. Conversation can be recorded, can be tapped, but there is a procedure that is, it can be only tapped by Parliament, by the acts, that too by authorized people, and they will tap it, they will record it, and it will not be open to public. If that is open to public, then it should also be restricted in a manner that that person's reputation is not affected. Suppose any government has a power to tap a person's conversation by proper way, by proper channel, and suppose a request has been made and it has been accepted and you are going for that, then in few days, okay, you are tapping a person's conversation, and after that you are coming in front of media and saying all the things. So this is also not done. You have to take the permission for a purpose or for a cause, and you have to use that information or you have to use that piece for that purpose only. You just cannot go to the media and say, okay, I have this information and I will make it open, and then that person's image will be affected, or that person's right to privacy will come into effect. Next is, if I talk about Information Technology Act 2000, this act deals with issues related to unauthorized access, damage to the computer through computer contaminants, hacking, breach of privacy and confidentiality, and publishing false digital signature certificate for fraudulent purposes. So it is said that suppose you are using a person's computer and you are hacking or misusing the information stored in that computer, so this is also affecting his right to privacy, and this is not done, and you can be penalized, or a cause of action can arise under Article 21 and under the Information Technology Act 2000. So a person has got the right, okay, he has a right that he can use the computer, but he cannot use the information without consent. If he is using any document, any data stored in the computer without the owner's consent, then that is affecting his right to privacy, and this can be further checked. Secondly, you cannot just make a false signature, digital signature. If you are having a person's email ID or email account, suppose you are working in a organization where you can have access to people's email, then you just cannot open it on your own, use it for your personal use, and that will come under infringement of Article 21 and Information Technology Act 2000. Section 72 further says penalty for breach of confidentiality and privacy. In this, if any person is really affecting your right to privacy, then under Section 72, imprisonment for a term which may extend to 2 years, or with fine which may extend to 1 lakh rupees, or with both, can be awarded by the court. Then Section 72 is very narrow because it only covers the officials who are authorized to collect data under this act. This section does not apply to any service provider or intermediary. Suppose this has been done by a service provider or intermediary, then the act is silent, and further it is proposed that Section 72 should be amended and intermediaries and service providers should also be included under Section 72 of the Act, because okay, an authorized person will not use your data, will not manipulate your data, but suppose a service provider is doing that, so should he not be covered under Section 72 of the Act? Definitely. So this amendment is proposed. Under the proposed amendment to Section 72, if any intermediary who by virtue of any subscriber availing his services has secured access to any material or information relating to such subscriber discloses such information or material without consent of the subscriber and with intent to cause injury to him, shall be liable to pay damages by way of compensation not exceeding rupees to the subscriber so affected. So this is very important. Suppose any intermediary or service provider is using your information, using your data, using your material, then he can be charged under this section. Section 66 talks about hacking. Hacking is committed if someone with the intention of causing wrongful loss or damage or with the knowledge that such damage or loss is likely to result to the public, any person destroys, delete, alters any information residing in computer resource, diminishing its value or utility or affects it injurious by any means. So, as this section says, that suppose you have saved any data and any person is deleting that data, further alters that data, destroys that data, or diminishes its value or makes alterations, then that person can be charged under this section. If a person commits hacking, he shall be liable with punishment, and that punishment is imprisonment up to 3 years or with fine or with both. Further, Section 66 of the Act also makes an unauthorized downloading, extraction of data an offence. You can download anything from the web, from the internet, but you can only download if that is free and accessible to all people. Suppose there are certain restrictions that okay, if you have to download this particular thing, then you have to make payments or you have to go by certain procedure, or a certain certain wing of people or certain category of people can only download this information, then that information is restricted to those people also, and nobody or no stranger can download it or extract that information. If any person does such an act, then he can be liable under Section 66 of the Act. Suppose there are defense rules, defense personnel can only make use of that. They can see the data, they can use that data, and if any person from the public wants to see them, wants to download it, then that is a violation under Section 66 of the Act, and further action can be taken against that person. Next is Section 43 of the Act. This says penalty for damage to computer system, etc. The person shall be liable to pay charges by way of compensation not exceeding rupees 1 crore. Suppose you are manipulating the data, you are damaging the computer, or you are damaging the computer system, then that person can file a case against you under Section 43 of the Information Technology Act 2000, and then you can be made personally liable for compensation not exceeding rupees 1 crore. Section 79 also talks about network service providers. It states that a network service provider shall be liable for violation of privacy of a third party if he makes available any third party information or data to a person for commission of an offence or contravention. Suppose they are network service providers. You have an agreement with the network service providers and they are giving your data, your information to a third person, to an unknown person who is not authorized to use that data, to use that information, then definitely that person can be charged under Section 79 of the Act, and then the court can award compensation. Exceptions to Section 79. A network service provider will not be liable if he proves that the offence or contravention was committed without his knowledge or he had exercised all due diligence to prevent such commissions. Suppose you as a third person or a third party from a certain source has received the data or is using that data, but the network service provider has not provided that data, and he has used all methods or all due diligence to prevent such commissions, then he will not be charged under this section. So this is an exception to section 79. If a network service provider acts in a bona fide manner and he has tried really hard not to make the data available to the third party or to any other person unauthorized or without the consent of the authorized person, if he also wants that certain information or certain data should not be transmitted to any third person, and by mistake or by some error this has been done, then he can prove that okay, I have acted according to due diligence and I have done it in a bona fide manner. Still that person, the third party, has manipulated the data or has received the data, so I should be given excuse and I should not be charged under section 79 of the Act. Next, if I talk about Freedom of Information Act 2002, then every citizen can secure access to information under the control of public authorities consistent with public interest in order to promote openness, transparency and accountability in administration and in relation to matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. This is very important because as we are talking about judges, should judges' income be disclosed, or judges should also disclose their income? They should disclose from where they are getting money, how much they are spending, how much they are getting, and they should be made accountable to the public. So this is very important. How much information you can ask for any other person, from any person, from a public authority, from the government or from any organization. So this deals with freedom of information. Every person has got a right to ask for certain things. If he wants an application, he wants to know about the status of his application because he has filed an application. The application is under progress or under process and he wants to know that okay, this is what is my state of the application. So if I want to know okay, I have applied for a gas connection, I want to know the state of my application, so I can ask under the Freedom of Information Act 2002, and then the authorities are bound to give me the information relating to my application. But there are certain restrictions also. I cannot ask for information relating to army rules, relating to army, navy, and there are certain secret documents which cannot be accessed by general people. So these all do not come under the Freedom of Information Act 2002. So there are certain restrictions also. If your information is not affecting the interest of the people at large or of the society, of the state, of the welfare of the people, then you can ask for certain information, and accordingly there is a procedure, and then the authorities will provide you with answer to your questions. Next is section 8.1 says, subject to section 8.2 exempts from disclosure in certain cases, like where sovereignty and integrity of India may be prejudicially affected by disclosure, or where public safety or order will be affected by such disclosure, or for the protection of trade or commercial secrets. So there are certain exceptions attached to this. Suppose India's sovereignty is affected. If you are asking a question, answer. The question is so important that if the government answers your question, then that will be hampering India's sovereignty. So the state will say, okay, you have asked this question, but we are not bound to answer to your question. Or if you are asking for a certain thing, A to Z, to C, your answer is not affecting the sovereignty of the country or the state or the army or the people at large, then A to C the information will be provided to you, and C to Z the state will say, the government will say that C to Z comes under this thing, exception to this, and we are not bound to provide you information regarding this matter. So there's a long debate that how much information you can take relating to a subject, what can you ask, how can you ask, what will be the procedure, and in what manner the person concerned will answer to your questions, and what should be the time. Time is very important, because suppose I am asking you a question today and you are answering that question after 30 years, 40 years, so this is not done. The Act also lays down the time period. Within the time period, the authority has to answer to your questions, and then only this right will be exercised properly. Section 9 empowers a public information officer to reject a request for information where such a request is too general in nature, or when it relates to information that is contained in published material available to public. Suppose there is general information, everybody knows, that has already been published in the newspapers, it is there for every person, and still you are asking for the information, then the officer concerned can say that you refer to such and such book, such and such order, and still also if you don't find, then you can come again, and or he can just refuse, okay, your question is a general question, we cannot answer to this, and we have made it open under this order, and you can go through the order and come to the conclusion. And suppose that material is published, there is a gadget or there is a note, and everybody has access to that gadget, then definitely the government can say that okay, you can refer to such and such clause, you can refer to such and such act, you don't have to come separately for getting answer from the authorities. Next is Indian Easement Act 1882. This is also very important. This act accords statutory recognition to customary right to privacy. Section 18 of the act provides that an easement may be acquired in virtue of local customs, which are called customary easement. So this act is also very important, because it says that statutory recognition has been given to right to privacy. And if we refer to this Indian Easement Act, then we find that right to privacy was there in India, and it has been always exercised under Indian Easement Act 1882. Next is, if we talk about Indian Penal Code 1860, then if we refer to section 509, 209, 354, 405 and 406, then we see that right to privacy is also enumerated under these sections of Indian Penal Code. As 509 of IPC comes into effect when there is an intention to insult the modesty of any woman by the offender by uttering any word, making any sound or gesture, or by exhibiting any object with the intention that such word or such sound be heard, or that such gesture or object be seen by such woman, or by intruding upon the privacy of such woman. Section 209 deals with obscene acts and songs. Then section 354 IPC deals with assault or criminal force to a woman with the intent to outrage her modesty, and lays down that whoever assaults or uses criminal force to any woman intending to outrage, or knowing it to be likely that he will be thereby outrage her modesty, shall be punished with imprisonment of either description for a term which may extend to 2 years, or with fine, or both. Then section 405 and 406 talks about punishment for criminal breach of trust. Next is, if we talk about Indecent Representation of Women Prohibition Act 1987, then we see, if any individual harasses another books, photographs, paintings, films, pamphlets, packages, etc. containing indecent representation of women, he is liable for a minimum sentence of 2 years. So, every person has a right to dignity under Article 21 of the Act, and if his dignity is affected, then definitely under the Indecent Representation of Women Prohibition Act, he can go and he can ask for damages also in certain cases, and even penal liability is there. Section 7 holds the company is in whose premises there has been indecent representation of women guilty of offence under this act with a minimum sentence of 2 years. Okay, if a person has done that act, he is also liable, and if a company has done that act, then the company will also be liable. So a legal status has been given to company also, and the company will also be liable if in the premises of the company indecent representation of women has been done. If we talk about intellectual property rights, then we see under the Indian law, computer programs have copyright protection but no patent protection. So this is very important. A software program is an algorithm, and patent law does not protect algorithms per se. If we talk about intellectual property rights, then we say that programs have got copyright protection. Copyright is there, but for patent you have to file it, and then only you can have a patent for that program, and that is a long procedure in India. Generally, patent for programs is very difficult to get. According to section 63B, copyright infringement attracts a minimum imprisonment of 7 days. The act further provides for fines which are not less than rupees 50,000 but may go up to rupees 2 lakhs, and a jail term up to rupees 3 years or both. Next is, if we talk about Specific Relief Act 1983, sections 39 of the SRA talks about a person has a right to claim temporary and permanent injunctions against an unauthorized disclosure of confidential information. Suppose any person discloses any confidential information relating to a person, then he can be made liable under sections 39 of the SRA. Next is Public Financial Institutions Act 1993. This act codifies India's tradition of maintaining confidentiality in banks' transaction. The bank is entrusted with a responsibility, and you have to finally protect the people or the customers' right to privacy. Then the international law is also there in United States of America, in United Kingdom and the European Union, and International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights also talks about right to privacy in detail, but today we were referring to right to privacy in Indian context. So I have dealt with all the acts and the constitution relating to right to privacy, and the right to privacy is very important because it is related to a person's dignity and right to life of a person. So this in general I can just say that right to privacy is a part of right to life as enshrined in Article 21 of the Constitution of India, and right to privacy has to be dealt with proper attention, and this has to be further developed because today lot of issues are affecting right to privacy in general. Thank you.